Yo, what's up? Yo, what's up, guys? Today we're talking about SAZABI, my favorite mobile suit, and whether you should main it in Gundam Evolution. Full disclosure, I did play a lot of this character in the PC Network test, and I did duo up to rank 17 on it, so I'm really excited to talk about it. Starting off, SAZABI is what I would call a brawling dive tank. It's essentially a main tank that's responsible for controlling space on the map, controlling choke points, and diving high damage enemy targets like GM Sniper. It uses a high damage close range shotgun that fires at a medium rate and has a lowish ammo count of only 7. It also has a self shield that it can use while it's shooting its shotgun, which is crazy. And it has the highest HP of any mobile suit with 1400, though it only has 1 dash bar mobility. To counteract for that, though, it has the ability to fly to a thrown target as in cooldown, or also to a teammate. So it has a pretty good amount of mobility considering how tanky it is. As I've been saying, SAZABI is the tankiest mobile suit in the game. So if you enjoy playing tanks in games like this, then you'll probably enjoy SAZABI. It plays a lot like Winston in Overwatch, but instead of a little zap gun that you zap enemies with when they laugh at you, you have a big scary shotgun. So, fun. So how good is SAZABI? SAZABI is very powerful in the right conditions. It's essentially the only true main tank in the game, and therefore is necessarily valuable to have on your team. It also has a high damage output that allows you to frag kills while also enjoying your tanky responsibilities, which is honestly pretty uncommon to have that sort of power in a game like this on a tanky unit. However, its health is comparatively low to other tank units in similar games. It only has 140% of the HP of a character like of a standard mobile suit with 1000 HP, whereas something like Reinhardt or Winston in Overwatch has 250% of the HP. So there's a big disparity in its HP. And because of this, it suffers very heavily against stuns. They're tuning Barbatos down, which was the biggest offender, but in the PC Network test, a good Barbatos player could just completely deny you the ability to do your job. You're supposed to hold close in certain areas, hold next to the side of a choke point, things like that, but you couldn't do that just because of how Barbatos could dash into you with its 3 mobilities and just outplay you. Like, it literally could just outplay you and kill you. But we'll talk more about that in a second. RX-78 is also very powerful against SAZABI because of its stun cooldown that makes it so you take the stun, take damage, and you lose your shield. So yeah, that's just crazy. You lose your shield even if you weren't having your shield up when you got hit, which is, yeah, crazy. I'm not bitter at all about this. But hopefully we'll see some changes in how the shields regard and react with the stuns, particularly for SAZABI. So regardless of this, though, it's still always a good idea to have a SAZABI, even against enemies that play well against it, just because it's the only one that fully fulfills its job, a very necessary job. So while SAZABI can feel a bit weak playing its stun counters, it's just necessarily good, essentially, if that makes sense. In addition, its ultimate is also very powerful. It doesn't feel super powerful, but the more you play it, the more you realize it does a lot of damage, and it does around a large area. So going over onto the skill requirement, talking about mechanical skill first, it's not like a super mechanically skillful hero. Aim is not very mechanically intensive on this character, considering hitting something up close with a shotgun is just not that difficult. Its tomahawk was the hardest projectile to hit in the whole network test, as it had literally the tiniest of hitboxes. Like, you could actually throw it between something's armpit, which is just crazy, and had a weird windup, but I think they'll change that. Honestly, most of SAZABI's mechanical skill comes from micro positioning. So playing corners really well, dashing into certain protected areas and dashing past people and around people and things like that is really valuable for its mechanical skill. As being like surrounded and being out of position for like a single moment can end with you dying if you're playing it stuns. So you have to play really mechanically well with your movement, and that's how you carry. You carry very consistently with how you're mechanically positioning yourself, and so that's how where all the mechanics are isolated into the specific movement, like things like how well you predict or react and dodge stun cooldowns, things like that. As for game knowledge, it's generally a simple mobile suit, but the majority of its value does come from game knowledge. With improved game understanding and application, your value with SAZABI will improve at a 1-to-1 ratio. So to be able to consistently play SAZABI at a really high level, you need a very high understanding of how the game works. But at a lower level, it's not too intensive. So you're not too worried too much on that. But learning macro capabilities, so full game understandings on top of micro things, like, these small ways to dodge cooldowns, small individual aspects of SAZABI are really, really important. Things like engagement timing, how to control corners, how to control choke points, what choke points do, who to dive, how far you can push your character and still survive, and just generally limit testing the character will drastically improve your capabilities on it. Also, understanding how to min-max your funnels increases your uptime drastically. Knowing how to maximize this G maneuver is insane. I remember a specific example when I had 700 HP, no shield, and like 3 enemies in front of me in a dream. But then I used my G maneuvers funnels, and they just sustained me enough because of the pressure they were applying on the enemy that I got my shield back and I got support and I was able to win. So it's really fun to do that. So moving on, will SAZABI get buffed or nerfed soon? SAZABI is unlikely to get nerfs. Any buffs it gets are likely to be through indirect nerfs to other characters. In the network test, it was in a solid position overall. It was strong because of the position it fit in, and basically just because of the way it's necessary for the game, and nothing else fills its role in the game, really. But, and not because the numbers are too high, but it was also weak in situations because of those 2 mobile suits being too strong, specifically Barbatos and Gundam. Barbatos could easily outplay even the best SAZABI players just because of how it had a 2-shot combo that did 1400 damage. It had a wide radius on the slam abilities, and it has 3 dashes. Essentially what you could do is, since SAZABI only has 1 dash, you could charge up your slam on Barbatos, dash around the corner, and based on how the SAZABI reacted, you could kill it. If it didn't react fast enough, you just slam and kill it. If it reacted fast enough, then you dashed again, and you put your body right on top of the SAZABIs so that you could easily hit it with the slam. You could also just more simply dash like through the SAZABI, and if you hit the slam, even when you were anywhere close to SAZABI, the radius on it was so large that it would hit it no matter how you dashed away from it, especially with a little bit of ping on the enemy, a little bit of latency. So Barbatos, as I said though, is getting some nerfs to its range, so it might not be as bad. We can only hope, but the RX-78 matchup was too strong also. Not unplayable levels, but just too strong, because when it hits you with that stun cooldown, it makes you drop your shield. And it's just, SAZABI is very big, so it's easy to hit SAZABI. Very easy to hit SAZABI. Yeah, but other than this, though, I wouldn't really expect any direct changes. I wouldn't really see them doing anything other than changing like some minor tweaks to the HP, the ammo, or the damage. So how fun is it though? SAZABI is really, really fun if you like playing this type of unit. There will always be the frustrations of being the focus of enemies and also the focus of getting stunned. That's par for the course of being a tank player. And it's not nearly as bad as other games are like Overwatch. It essentially combines the chess gameplay, the chess-like gameplay of tanks with the frag potential of a damage unit, which is really cool. You don't have to sit around praying for your teammates to help you finish kills like you do in other games. Hitting a tomahawk was very satisfying if you actually did manage to land it. The sound of shotgunning to the enemies to the face was like 10 out of 10. Being capable of pressuring out mostly whichever enemy you chose was a very nice feeling. And feeling like you're actually in a level field with enemies, even though your tank was nice. It is frustrating though to be hard countered by Barbatos or RX-78. It isn't as bad as other games because you can still beat them if you play a lot better than them. Against Barbatos was hard just because of the fact that you have the same range as Barbatos, and Barbatos's biggest weakness is getting poked out at range. So yeah, like it has 1000 HP and you can only do 700 max. So if you dig it close enough to hit a good shotgun on it, it's just going to stun you to death. And there's basically nothing you can do other than hit a tomahawk, which is just not going to happen that often. This whole thing isn't as bad as other games. It's not like playing Winston and having a Roadhog walk up to you, where you have to just completely run away and you have no chance. But it's still a little bit frustrating. If they resolve how stuns work with shields, and specifically SAZABI shield, then it'll be an amazing experience. And you won't have any sort of bad aftertaste at all. That's the goal, right? Its G maneuver, I do have to say, isn't the most exciting of ultimates, but it has like a very like, it's kind of like a fine taste that you develop to enjoy, and you start to learn how to understand and feel the enjoyment of it, where rather than having this really high like simple, you know, chicken nugget of a sensation, you're having something more special, like whatever. I don't know. That was a terrible example. So yeah, moving on into the final rating, it is still getting an S tier in spite of some of those negatives. It has a very high skill ceiling, but it also gets solid value at all ranks, meaning it's great for low, mid, and high rank players. Marasai is also arguably a main tank that competes with this character, but only in specific circumstances, so really that leaves SAZABI as the only main tank in the game. We don't really know what new main tanks they're going to add. These tanks that push and make space and threaten high damage targets and make space or make safe areas with their team can play, like with shields and stuff like that. But understanding how to tank with SAZABI and understanding how the character plays in general, the general playstyle will carry over to any one that they add, no matter which one they add. So it's a very unique playstyle, but it will carry over. So essentially, while SAZABI does have some strong weaknesses, it also has some strong strengths too. And literally almost every team composition will benefit from a SAZABI, because if you don't have it, you don't have something that can pressure certain threats properly and threaten choke points and do other things like that. And because it's so valuable, you're not going to be dealing with a situation of people on your team asking you to switch off or flaming you. It's going to be something that is necessary to have on any team. Also, it does transfer pretty decently into some other mobile suits. Like I said, it transfers to any main tank that they'll add. It transfers into SAZABI or Marasai decently, and also transfers into GM and RX-78 because of their tankiness somewhat well. Thinking you're going to join me as a SAZABI main? Then make sure to check out my SAZABI mobile suit guide I made for the character. In the video, I talk about its abilities, I talk about its strengths and weaknesses, when you should play it, and also how you should play it. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure to check out that video.